What's in store that keeps you coming back for more?
Full season with Luka, for real. Like, I get a full season with Luka, seeing what Luka was doing in Eurobasket this summer. Everyone's talking about his body and how well in shape he is and all that. Another season under the belt with the coaching staff. We had 1 year, first year, JJ and his coaching staff, and we get to start right from day one. You know, it was obviously a difficult transition, bringing in Luka, kind of like the halfway point or whatever, and trying to figure that out, and we all figured out each other. The best thing about this year is that we're starting right now.
What's the comfort level with this group as of one game in?
You know, obviously we have 81 games to go. We're gonna win every game. My comfort level is good. There was a lot of positive things tonight. Obviously, a lot of things that we need to work on. We gotta figure it out. But my confidence is fine.
Thank God, man, the NBA season is back. We've already seen various matchups like the Oklahoma City Thunder winning 2 straight double overtime games, first in the regular season opener against the Rockets and then defeating the Pacers where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 55 points, his career high. And then we also got another overtime game between the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets with Steph Curry dropping 42 points and Victor Wembanyama for the Spurs dominated, having 40 points and 15 rebounds against the Mavericks. And also crazy shocking news within the NBA. The FBI arrests and investigation of Chauncey Billups, head coach for the Portland Trailblazers, and Terry Rozier for the Miami Heat. Just a lot of crazy action going on throughout these first few days of the NBA season. And with the team in this video, Luka Doncic, even though the Lakers lost in their season opener against the Warriors, he had 43 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists. But you see the title of this video, though. We're doing the season preview for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm not overreacting to what happened to the Golden State Warriors game as they lost that 119 to 109. Luka Doncic having 43, 12, and 9. I mean, we know the type of prolific player that he is, Luka being a top 3 to 5 player in the league. But I'm saying that the Lakers aren't true championship contenders in this video, and I'll elaborate even more on that, is because how the roster is currently constructed. And believe me, I'm one of the biggest Luka Doncic fans in the league. He's one of my 2 favorite players alongside of a Devin Booker. But if we call a spade and be honest about this Los Angeles Lakers team for the 2025-26 season, it's not built to be one of the best teams in the league right now. They're for sure probably one of the best in the West, but as we all know, the Western Conference is the definition of a gauntlet, as there's so many competing teams. I mentioned the defending champions in the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Houston Rockets with Kevin Durant. You have the Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic, 3-time NBA MVP that he is. I talked about Victor Wembanyama and the performance that he has. The Spurs are also coming as well too in that conversation. The Dallas Mavericks too, when Kyrie Irving returns. You can make the argument for the Clippers as well, and we can't forget to mention the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Warriors in that conversation. So there's a lot of teams. So where do the Los Angeles Lakers line up with that? We know that LeBron James probably won't return until mid to late November, as he's out with sciatica right now, and right now we'll be looking. Right now the Lakers, I mean, they rotated a lot of different starting lineups in the 2024-25 season, but in the opening night matchup, they rolled out the starting lineup of Luka, Austin Reeves, Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, and DeAndre Ayton. And honestly, currently constructed with that, I like Marcus Smart coming off the bench as well too, the type of defensive pest and former defensive player of the year that he is. Is he the same player right now? I don't know. That'll be answered throughout the season. But for me, especially looking at the previous iterations of teams that have catered around the Luka Doncic, that has had real postseason success, for example, in the 2021-22 season when the Mavericks made the conference finals, and in the 23-24 season when the Mavericks made the NBA finals, this team isn't even close, in my opinion, to the type of construction that those rosters had. And make no mistake, it's obvious at this point. The tide is changing. Everyone knows it, is that this is turning into Luka Doncic's team after the most shocking trade in NBA history happened this past February with Luka being dealt to LA, and now with him signing a 3-year, $165 million contract extension this past August to remain with the Lakers, and he'll also be eligible in the future as well for an even bigger contract extension for that. This team is his, and LeBron James, we know he's 40 years old, still being the dominant player that he is. Last year averaging 24, 8, and 8, playing 70 games, still being one of the best players that we've seen play this game. I think Michael Jordan's better, but we're not about to have a GOAT conversation about that. LeBron is still one of the top 2 players in NBA history. But reality is that with LeBron on this roster, whenever he does return, they're competitive. But I just believe that if you want to really truly build this team around a Luka Doncic, you have to make more moves to ultimately replicate or even expand and build upon the type of success that we've seen with Luka Doncic's teams be true championship contenders. And you're not doing that right now, especially in my opinion, at the center position alone where you have DeAndre Ayton. And that's no disrespect to a player like a DeAndre Ayton, former #1 overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. He's had solid seasons, been mostly a double-double player throughout his career. His best season arguably in the 2022-23 season where he averaged 18 and 10, shooting essentially 59% from the field with Phoenix. But the past 2 years when he was in Portland, really, they were lackluster. He was injured a lot too. And the Portland Trailblazers essentially made a decision to run their big man lineup now with Donovan Clingan and their rookie center this year, Young Hansen, who they drafted in the first round, and cut DeAndre Ayton. So that says a lot in terms of not only how the Trailblazers view him, but really the lack of market that a DeAndre Ayton had ultimately before signing with the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think that he's a solid big. He's very talented, and I don't believe in calling people soft necessarily, but I believe that he's not the most physical type of big that can bang and necessarily is fit perfectly for a player like a Luka Doncic. Really plays effectively with rim running bigs who can defend at a high level. For example, with Luka Doncic in that finals run with Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, even with fours, PJ Washington. Players like that you need to surround Luka with. And I also believe that having an effective ball handler with Luka Doncic makes a difference as well too. Austin Reeves assumes that role right now with the Lakers, and you know, when LeBron James returns, of course that'll be him. But if you look at it from a future standpoint, especially if the Lakers end up re-signing / extending Austin Reeves after this season to have a potential dynamic of a backcourt with Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves for the future, I'm not sure necessarily how that'll fare, because yeah, they have similar play styles to an extent. Believe that Luka is head and shoulders, of course, better as a player, but also as a playmaker. But I mean, Austin Reeves, he averaged 24 and 6 last year, and he can be a walking 20 to 25 player per night. But I believe that Luka is best with a true point guard who can also score at a high level. And Austin Reeves, if we're being honest about him, he's a combo guard at this point in his career. He's not necessarily a true floor general. If anything, Luka Doncic is more so of a point forward / point guard. And when we saw Jalen Brunson and Luka Doncic be together on the Dallas Mavericks, I think that's when the Mavericks, of course, outside of Luka and Kyrie making a finals run playing together, I think that's when they were also really effective there. And that's the type of player that you need around a Luka Doncic, alongside with having a lot of defenders and people who can knock down wide open threes / defend at a high level. Biggest indictments for me for this Los Angeles Lakers roster was not prioritizing re-signing a player like a Dorian Finney-Smith, who we all know he had a great rapport with Luka Doncic from his time being a part of the Dallas Mavericks, and then also, of course, Dorian Finney-Smith was on the Lakers last year. But not re-signing him and then allowing him to go to another Western Conference contender in the Houston Rockets with Kevin Durant, Amen Thompson, Alfred Şengün playing at a high level. I think that was a fatal flaw for this roster, because they need all the defensive help that they can get right now. Like I said, you don't want to react off of one game, but it was very apparent that defense was very ineffective in that first matchup against the Golden State Warriors. And if you can't defend at a high level in this league, especially in the postseason, you're going to be baked overall. And the best teams are going to target you. You saw that even, for example, on opening night between the Rockets and the Thunder. Every time Reed Shepard was on the court, SGA was going at him. All the OKC playmakers were going at him. And that's what the best offenses do in the most crucial moments for sure. But when you look past Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, you can throw in DeAndre Ayton, Rui Hachimura, and Marcus Smart, and Gabe Vincent, contributors for this roster. I mean, they signed Jake LaRavia in the offseason. They have Dalton Connect in his second year. They drafted Adu Thiero in the 2025 draft this year. Have Maxi Kleber, Jared Vanderbilt. He's a solid 3-and-D player, I would say, too, as well. And Jackson Hayes. They're not a deep team when you're looking at the construction of this roster right now. And last year, after they traded for Luka Doncic, they had a big man problem. And we all know that Mark Williams trade that ended up being rescinded, because if it wasn't, then he would have been on the roster. But I still believe that they have a big man problem even on this team right now. Jackson Hayes, I mean, he's a solid, serviceable backup big, but that's your backup answer still right now. And as I mentioned, DeAndre Ayton, he's not a defensive anchor. I think this Lakers team would thrive if they had multiple defensive big man anchors, and ultimately they don't right now. And that's going to come to show in the postseason against these Western Conference teams, because the West has the definition of parity. I had mentioned all the teams that will probably be in a playoff mix in the Western Conference / contending at a high level too. But even overall in the league, I mean, you have to be able to have shot blockers to sustain real success and open a championship window right now. And they're just not constructed to do that ultimately at this time in this level. But Luka Doncic has been a walking bucket his entire career. Has averaged 28 points the past 2 seasons, and then in 23-24 he averaged 34. In 2022-23 season he averaged 32 points per game, and he's averaged over 8 assists every year of his career besides his rookie year. I mean, just filling up the stat sheet, and he's a complete player, I guess, besides his defense, but overall with him losing weight, things of that nature as well too, and just overall effort, I think Luka, he can be an effort level defender that can be solid as a help defender as well too. But when you have a player like that, especially he's making $46 million right now, just turned 26 years old in February, you have to maximize his prime that he's reaching into, because it can definitely be a long prime with the type of play style that he has, the effectiveness, and the way that he doesn't have to necessarily move athleticism in his game. His game is based off of pure skill for sure. But with that being said though, if you're going against a team like the OKC Thunder in the playoffs or something like that, or the Minnesota Timberwolves that we saw last year, the Timberwolves gentlemen swept the Lakers last season, you're gonna have to have some help with him and have a real key playmaker. And LeBron James, like I've continued to say, given his flowers, he's one of the best players to ever play basketball, and he's still right now a top 10 to top 15 player in the league. But with him turning 41 years old in a couple of months, and of course you're gonna want LeBron to, you know, preserve his energy when he returns, and ultimately as you want to gear up for his playoff run and stuff like that too, that's not necessarily the key ingredient or formula for winning a championship in 2025, 2026, 27, 28, or whatever, how long LeBron is a part of this Lakers roster near future, even though I don't think it'll be that long. I think it'll be 1 or 2 more years potentially. But if your second best player, and like I said, LeBron is playing at a high level still for sure, but if your second best player is about to be 41 years old, currently in the NBA, I don't necessarily think that's the best way to win a championship in the NBA right now. And that's no disrespect at all. But with that being said though, guys, before I get further into this video talking about why the Lakers aren't true championship contenders and ultimately previewing their 2025-26 NBA season, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on the post notifications. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and X at SwaggyRuss, and TikTok at SwaggyRuss2 for shorts, reels, and all content and things of that nature as well. A lot more season preview videos on the way. Of course, it's coinciding with the current regular season that's going on, so it's a preview, but also it's very early in the season, so I still think it's very valid and relevant to be making these. So stay tuned because I'm only doing the top contenders, so there will be probably like 5 to 6 or 7 more of these season preview videos, and then more just NBA videos in general throughout the year, of course, with my NFL content that I'm posting as well too. So stay tuned for a lot of that content as well, and exclusive Houston Rockets videos that I'll be making with ESPN Houston as well too. So stay tuned for a lot of content like that. But with that being said, let's talk about in this video why the Los Angeles Lakers aren't true championship contenders. So you might be at this point in the video where you're like, I'm tapped out. How can this guy say the third best team in the Western Conference from last year in the regular season not be a true championship contender? Well, first and foremost, we all know they lost in the first round of the NBA playoffs to the 6th seed in 5 games. That's one argument right there. The play style has to be able to be more easy and really take pressure off of Luka Doncic. Why do I say that? Of course, Luka is a ball dominant player. He needs the ball in his hands, things of that nature as well too, but it can't all be on him. And like I said, Austin Reeves, he can light the scoreboard up for sure, but at times, especially in postseason scenarios, you saw in that Timberwolves series alone with LeBron and Luka handling most of the primary ball responsibilities, but even when one of a Luka or LeBron was out too though, Austin Reeves wasn't necessarily as effective as he was not only in the regular season, but as he was trending to be as he has continued to ascend year and year throughout his career. Compared to Austin Reeves' averages of 20 points per game, 4 rebounds, and nearly 6 assists in the 2024-25 regular season, in the playoffs he only averaged 16.2 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists, shooting only 41% from the field and 31% from 3. Definitely off of his 46% shooting from the field and 37.7 3-point percentage in the 24-25 regular season. It just shows that you have to have those guys who ascend in the playoffs, and Luka Doncic is a definition of a player that rises in the playoffs throughout his young career so far. In the 2025 playoffs, even though the Lakers lost in 5 games, he averaged 30.2 points per game, 7 rebounds, and essentially 6 assists, shooting 45% from the field and 35% from 3. And throughout his playoff career, he's averaged 31 points per game, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists in 55 games in the playoffs throughout his career. So that just says a lot. He's a trustworthy player in terms of postseason performances. Maybe his NBA Finals debut performance against the Boston Celtics, where they lost in 5 games in the 2024 NBA Finals, wasn't the best, but overall throughout his career, he's been a player that is not only reliable in the postseason, but is an absolute killer and annihilates teams in the playoffs. Ask the Phoenix Suns, because that was definitely a series where you can find all of the evidence of that you need. Averages for Luka Doncic has him second in points per game by Michael Jordan, who averaged 33.4 points per game in the playoffs throughout his career. So that just says the type of uncharted and elite company that he's in terms of a playoff perspective, but that goes along to the argument that I mentioned before. And LeBron James, he didn't necessarily play bad. The Timberwolves playoff series in last year's playoffs, 25 points per game, 9 rebounds, and nearly 6 assists, shooting 49% from the field and 36% from 3. But that's not enough, man, especially when nowadays you pretty much have to have 3 great contributors and a solid depth to your roster. What do I mean by that? Obviously not having a super team. We've seen how super teams don't work out nowadays in the NBA, but you need 2 solid ball handlers, for example, like with Oklahoma City Thunder, SGA and Jalen Williams, and a big that can create, or multiple bigs, and a solid bench that can create. And the Los Angeles Lakers, they don't necessarily have that. They have the playmakers in terms of LeBron James, of course, with Luka Doncic, and even Austin Reeves. But the bigs, I think, is really something that's just going to continue to handicap this team in terms of competing at a high level. You're facing teams in the Western Conference alone, as I mentioned with Oklahoma City Thunder, who has lineups at the big man position. But Chet Holmgren was not the biggest big in the league, of course not. Frail in size, but he's a very versatile player, so that's one there. And they have Isaiah Hartenstein as well too as a support big in different lineups as well. And ultimately, this is the main example of someone who will kill them potentially in a playoff run or just overall in a regular season, is Nikola Jokic. He's been a Laker killer for the past few years. That's been in full effect. But Nikola Jokic would absolutely demolish DeAndre Ayton potentially in a playoff series. Same thing with Jackson Hayes coming off the bench. And not only when Nikola Jokic being on the Nuggets, They have Jonas Valanciunas, who will be coming off of the bench for them as well too. That's a team that can create several mismatches for a team against the Los Angeles Lakers. And with that too, not only from a big perspective, but you can see it against the Golden State Warriors too, where they can really tire the team out. And also Jonathan Kuminga still being on their roster. We saw that in the first game of this year in the season opener. He can create mismatches. Jimmy Butler being on that roster. They have a lot more depth. I think depth is the biggest thing that's handicapping the Los Angeles Lakers, alongside of not having real big man depth and versatility. The Oklahoma City Thunder, the Nuggets, them, but also the Houston Rockets. We saw the type of experimenting that they're doing with their defensive lineups alone. Amen Thompson playing point guard, and you have KD, who really we know is 7 foot. Jabari Smith, Steven Adams, Alfred Şengün. Those guys are 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot plus. I mean, you're gonna have to match up with those teams, and yeah, maybe from an offensive perspective, Luka can create the switch, things of that nature too, and create those mismatches. But right on the flip side, you're gonna have to guard and play against them, and in many intensive purposes, that's gonna be a mismatch for you on the defensive side. So that keeps you honest as a team overall and creates several disadvantages for your team. And I just believe that right now, they're not built to be a team that can contend at the highest level, and they lost in the first round of the 2024-25 NBA playoffs for a reason. A player also like Victor Wembanyama, who's going to terrorize the entire league throughout this year, you're just not going to be able to match up well against those type of teams. So what should the Lakers do maybe to remedy this and potentially go on a championship run? It'll be easy to say something like potentially trade for a Daniel Gafford or another big like that, or someone who's played with Luka, or someone who would have a solid rapport, a rim running big, or things of that nature as well too. But ultimately right now, I think you're kind of stuck with the roster that you have. They can't make moves potentially at the trade deadline if they don't like how the season is going, things to that nature, or if they feel like they're not going to extend Austin Reeves after this year, potentially trade him, try to get some value off of that. Who knows what they want to do from that perspective. But like I mentioned though, as this roster as currently constructed, and alongside with them waiting for LeBron James to return from his injury with sciatica, which also we shouldn't necessarily look at that as nothing. I mean, obviously we know it's LeBron James. A lot of people think he's immortal, but sciatica, that's a different injury for sure that you just have to continually wait for him to feel fresh about. But anyways, I'm just not convinced that the Lakers can do much to this roster to really retool it and make it a true championship contender for this 2025-26 NBA season. The biggest kind of argument for saying the Lakers are actually championship contenders is that Luka and LeBron are having a full year together, and I understand that it was very chaotic as a result of that. Luka being traded to the Lakers, the whole roster turnover, the Lakers losing Anthony Davis, Max Christie, players to that nature or whatever, and just having to adapt, and LeBron and Luka having to form a rapport mid to end of the season and going into the playoffs. And maybe you can make that as an excuse to say why they didn't necessarily perform at a high level, and saying that this year with a full year with Luka and LeBron, maybe that'll change things and they'll be able to be even better. But they're not even having a full year with Luka and LeBron technically, as LeBron isn't playing the season until, as I mentioned, mid-November because of that sciatica injury. So it just comes to show that this Lakers team is going to have to be one that just adapts with what they have. No one in the NBA is going to feel bad for you. Everyone deals with injuries, things to that nature, or things that aren't ideal. But how are you going to adapt to it? And I just believe that the Lakers right now, they aren't constructed necessarily to be that team that we all necessarily envision when you just put on paper with LeBron James and Luka Doncic playing together. I think next year, if anything, in the 26-27 season, that's where the true window starts with Luka Doncic. He'll be 27 years old, another year going into his prime, continuing to elevate his game. Also, of course, with him having a new frame, being in shape and things of that nature too, continuing to build on that. But I'm just not convinced right now, at recording this video, of course, it's very early in this new 25-26 NBA season, that the Lakers are going to be one of those teams that we see at the end of the year in the conference finals or in the NBA finals, having a chance to lift up the Larry O'Brien trophy to get the Lakers 18th championship in NBA history. But I've been wrong plenty before in my life. I can definitely be wrong about this again. This can be a potential year for Luka Doncic to finally win the MVP award, because he's been favored in years past, but whether it's from injuries like last year or just different people just playing at a high level like a SGA, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid winning the award, I think Luka Doncic has the potential to win several NBA MVPs. But overall, I just don't see the Los Angeles Lakers competing for the NBA championship team this year. If anything, I view them potentially as a first or second round exit. But like I said, y'all guys let me know in the comments down below. Do y'all think I'm tripping? Do y'all think that the Los Angeles Lakers are true championship contenders? Or are you kind of in the boat like me? Do y'all not see them contending for a championship this season yet? Being in the mix for potential first or second round run, but being a little bit ways away from being true championship contenders. Y'all let me know. I'll also say this for sure though. Luka Doncic, with him being one of the best players in the league, they always have a chance to do crazy things. I don't think a lot of people at all had the Mavericks making the NBA finals in the 23-24 season. So I will be an advocate. I will say that for sure as a consolation. But overall, like I said, I remain consistent in saying that I don't think the Los Angeles Lakers are true championship contenders this season, but I can be wrong and they can turn this thing around, because I think JJ Redick ALLCREDIT as a head coach. He has the potential to be really good in this league, and we saw that at moments last year. But I think that right now, they're just not there yet. But like I said, y'all let me know in the comments down below. With all that being said though, guys, make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Like I said, a lot more videos on the way, more season previews, a lot of NBA, NFL content throughout this year, and just in general, guys. So make sure that y'all are subscribing, staying tuned for a lot more, and turning on post notifications. Make sure I hit the new hype button feature that's on YouTube now too as well. I'm not necessarily sure with all the features that applies, but why not utilize it? So yeah, but with that being said, like I said, stay tuned for a lot more stuff, guys. Know that you are loved. God loves you. You have great purpose, and that you are here for a reason. And keep Jesus Christ at the center of your life always, guys. Keep being blessed and legendary, and y'all have a good one. Peace.